Hey everybody, welcome back to Battlestar Galactica Remembered. And today I have my laptop open right in front of me. That's why I've got this screen here. And the reason why I do is because, in some of the last recent videos that I've done, I have alluded a lot to the Battlestar Galactica novelization, right? That if you want to get as close as possible to Glenn Larson's original vision Battlestar Galactica, that mini-series version, right, before all the changes, before all the weekly series came into play, read the novelization. Well, for those of you who have not read the novelization, I said that what I was going to do is I was going to do a video going over a lot of kind of the major stuff that you find in the novel that you don't find in the TV series. They changed it. So this is going to be kind of like a Cliff Note cheat version here if you don't want to go read the novel, okay? Now I'm not going to go through every single little thing, but I read through the novel and I started taking notes. I said, hey, that's different. And, that's kind of strange. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start going in kind of chronologically. I have a whole document here and I'm going to read off it all those major kind of things that are found in the novel but changed for the TV show, right? And I'm gonna put full screen. I'm gonna bullet point him up for you, so you're not just gonna be sitting here watching me read. You'll be able to see him up on the screen as well, right? So we're gonna go through it here, right? So there's a couple different kind of categories. Some that is just expositional. You kind of find out that hey, they do mention that stuff in the novel, but you don't really see it or hear it in the show. But then there's kind of contradictory evidence, and that is where stuff like it was in the novel, but they totally changed it for the show, right? So let's go ahead and dive in here to it, the Battlestar Galactica novelization. So the first thing we're going to start off with is Zach. In the novel, Zach is a battle-hardened lieutenant. That's right. He's not an ensign on his first patrol like was shown in the TV show. And Zach was assigned the mission to fly with Apollo by Colonel Ty as punishment because he was caught fooling around with one of Dr. Pye's nurses. That's right. So in the novel, he's a little more of a playboy kind of guy, not this little kind of newbie as seen in the TV show. Kind of interesting. President Adar is said to have a long gray beard. Of course, in the TV show, he does not. Baltar is described as being very, very fat. And, John Colicos says Baltar, he's a little pudgy, but not too fat, He's also said to be a self-proclaimed count who was a trader in rare items, right? So that's kind of expositional right there. The Battlestar Pacifica was said to have been the largest Battlestar, but she had been destroyed, thus making the Galactica the fleet's largest. And the Galactica was commissioned 200 years ago, or Yarans ago, right? Commander Adama has commanded the Galactica for 25 years. And Jolly and Green Bean's names were given to them by their squadron mates due to their appearances. So that's kind of interesting. That is not their real names, of course, but you also notice in some of the monitor shots of like the squadron, they're listed as Jolly and Green Bean. So they're actually listed in the computer with their nicknames, which is kind of strange, I guess. Cylons, here we go, right? This is it. Cylons are actual creatures who have many eyes on their heads and can change the shape of their heads at will. That was the original vision. Athena has blonde hair. That's right. How about that, huh? Now, I was kind of thinking about this when given the picture of Isla, who was Adama's wife, their mother. Remember, she's a blonde woman in the picture that is shown. So I guess it's not too far-fetched to think that Athena was blonde. But obviously with Apollo and Zach, being dark-haired and all that, they changed her. Maren Jensen, of course, is dark-haired. I think it works a little bit better in the TV show. There are battle cruisers with the fleet, indicating a different type of warship. That's kind of interesting because we don't see any other type of warship in the TV show. I get that. It's kind of weird why we don't, but that is in the novel. The Imperious leader is said to be 700 years old. They serve a term of 75 years. Boxy, here we go, is not Serena's son. And there is a camouflage force field around the Galactica and the fleet. That's why the Silas can't really find them, only when there's a glitch in the system. That's how they kind of track them. One of the other battlestars at Simtar is the Solaria, I don't know. There's a lot of, remember the background info on the Battlestar's present and all. You can look that up somewhere else, but it says that, and it says that the ragtag fleet is composed of 22,000 ships, not 220. I've always kind of found that a little strange. Out of all of humanity, 12 planets worth, and they only got 220 ships. I mean, that's kind of crazy. But 22,000 sounds a little better. Cassiopeia, on the other side of the Athena being blonde, right? Cassiopeia is dark haired and has dark eyes in the novel. Sire Yuri is actually arrested and taken away from his party on board the Rising Star. Now, we know that that doesn't happen in the show. They only take his food. But in the novel, he's actually arrested. Adama resigns as president of the Council of the 12, and it is Adama's idea to go to Carillon, not Apollo. How about that? That's a major difference right there. Some of the ships jump. So apparently they have some kind of faster than light transport to the Carillon sector and leave the rest behind. And they are actually, in the novel, they are surprised to find that the approach to Carillon is mined. In the TV show, I guess to shorten things up, they already know that it's mined. And it is Adama's plan, once again, to clear the mines, not Apollo's. Kind of interesting. There also is no Nova of Madagon. Some Cylon worlds practice monogamy. That's kind of interesting. Because remember, they're real creatures. And the IL vows to stamp it out. We're also told that a whole crop can grow in one day on the agro ships. The Ovions were enslaved and transported to Carillon by the Cylons. And in the novel, Adama and also Colonel Tai go down to Carillon. Of course, that does not happen in the TV show. And it is also mentioned that Apollo wears dress blues on Carillon, as do most of the other warriors, which of course is not shown. The only time Apollo is ever shown wearing dress blues is during his wedding to Serena. Lotte, the Ovion queen, has drugged the leaders to influence them into staying. We never really find out too much about that in the TV show. And Starbuck ultimately kills Lotte, the Ovion queen. Muffet is also shot by a Cylon. Colonel Tai is at the ceremony on Carillon and is wounded in the ground battle. How about that? We don't ever see anything like that in the TV show. Rain is falling as the colonials evacuate Carillon. Of course, that was totally skipped in the actual TV show. Starbuck and Cassiopeia pilot an Ovion transport full of Tylium up to the Galactica. That is totally different than what we see. Of course, Cassiopeia then just, I guess, take shuttles back to the Galactica, and all the rest of the pilots go and fight the Cylons in their Vipers and stuff. So that's totally different as far as the ending for Starbuck and Cassiopeia. No direct mention is made of Carillon actually exploding, although they do mention the possibility of it occurring with all of the Tylium on fire. And in a major difference with what actually happens in the TV show version, the Imperious leader is not present at Carillon and therefore does not die. That's very interesting because, you know, the whole point of Baltar surviving occurs because the Imperious leader dies and the new benevolent Imperious leader, his replacement, offers the kind of, you know, the twig of peace, as they say. Baltar, and here's the other one, is executed. The Cylons are defeated at Carillon, but another force attacks the ships which had been left behind by the Galactica. The Galactica and the Vipers then jump back to the fleet, remember, where they had left them, and rout the Cylons there as well. They kind of put all that together in the TV show. And at the very end, they said that they are eating mashed potatoes in their victory dinner at the very end. So there you go. Those are some of the major differences. All of that stuff can be found in the novelization. But as you can see, a lot of differences and changes as to what ultimately happened and what aired in the TV show. So I hope you enjoyed this one. Again, if that kind of intrigues your your appetite for it, get the novel, read through it again. You can read all about that kind of stuff and how it all works and how it all plays and how it's all described there. But finally wanted to do this one, the Battlestar Galactica novelization, which again had to be ready and had to be, you know, done, distributed and printed and all that months probably before the actual show appeared. And so that's why you've got all of these different changes that were ultimately, that was the original kind of version, but were changed. A lot of them were changed because of the show. And, I'm sure some of them were cost saving measures, but others were story changed. They got the changes from the writers and how they were going to kind of change it and all that kind of stuff. And so that's how you can see what happened and how it changed from the novel version to the TV version. So anyway, that's what we got. Battlestar Galactica novelization right here on Battlestar Galactica Remembered. Long live Battlestar Galactica. And I will see you in the next video.